Stop scrolling. Put the popcorn down. Because what you're about to hear is going to flip your brain inside out. For years, everybody's been pointing fingers at Lil Durk, the blogs, the street detectives on Reddit, the Twitter lawyers who think a genius lyrics annotation is admissible in court. But what if I told you they were looking in the wrong direction the whole time? Picture this: Atlanta, flashing lights, a crowd too hyped to notice the storm brewing. King Von steps into history that night, not by chance, but by design. And no, I'm not talking about the official police version, or the so-called eyewitnesses who can't even remember what color their shoes were. I'm talking about the whispers, the leaked screenshots, the anonymous sources who apparently never sleep. Because new evidence, and yeah, I'm putting that in quotes, suggests that Von's death wasn't Durk's orchestration at all. Instead, it may have been the perfect storm created by Savannah rapper Quando Rondo and his gang. Yeah, let that sink in. The guy everybody dismissed as just collateral might just be the architect. And if that's true hip-hop history as we know it just got rewritten. So let's set the record straight, or as straight as anything in hip-hop street politics can ever be. Everybody and their grandma has been convinced that Lil Durk was the mastermind behind the death of King Von. It's the easy narrative. Von was Durk's protege, Durk was the boss, and when the young lion fell, the internet said, well, clearly the big lion orchestrated it. Sounds neat, sounds cinematic, right? Except, what if the story is totally upside down? Because what we're uncovering today paints a very different picture, one where the spotlight doesn't fall on Durk at all. Instead, it points towards someone the industry never expected, Savannah's own Quando Rondo and his gang. Yeah, the same guy most people thought was just an unlucky bystander that night in Atlanta. Now, let's rewind. November 6, 2020. A regular night outside the Monaco Hookah Lounge turns into one of the most infamous nights in hip-hop history. King Von, Chicago drill legend, on the rise, the guy whose storytelling had fans hooked like they were watching the next Scorsese movie, ends up in a scuffle. Not with the police, not with a rival Chicago crew, but with Quando Rondo. And here's the kicker: the first reports? They all made it look like a random street fight gone wrong. A few punches, some yelling, then suddenly, gunfire. Von drops. Chaos. The world loses one of the most polarizing rappers of his generation. And in the chaos, one man's name starts spreading like wildfire: Durk. Why? Because fans wanted revenge. They wanted a boogeyman. And who better than the guy always rapping about sliding for the gang? But if you dig past the smoke and mirrors, the receipts tell a different story. Think about this. Quando Rondo wasn't some innocent bystander. He wasn't sipping apple juice in the corner when Von came swinging. Nah. Quando was in the center of it. His homie, Lul Tim, is the one who allegedly pulled the trigger. That's not speculation. That's the part everybody actually agrees on. But what people ignore is the why. Why was Quando even there? Why did Von approach him? Why did it escalate so fast? Anonymous sources, and by that, I mean a cousin's baby mama's hairdresser who definitely knows what's going on, claim that the whole thing was a setup. That Quando knew Von would be there. That he played it cool, posted like he was just vibing, but in reality, the trap was already set. And when Von walked into that parking lot, he walked right into a powder keg. Let's not forget, Quando wasn't just another rapper. He was connected. He had ties to NBA YoungBoy, one of Von's biggest rivals. That's like gasoline meeting fire. And if you think it's just coincidence they ended up face-to-face that night, then I've got a bridge to sell you in Savannah. Now, here's where it gets even crazier. Multiple reports claim that Von didn't die immediately from that first altercation. Some allege, again, purely speculative street whispers, that the finishing blow didn't even happen at the scene. They say after Von was rushed to the hospital, the chaos didn't end. Shadows followed him. The kind of whispers you hear in hospital corridors when security cameras mysteriously cut out. Did someone ensure Von wouldn't make it out alive? Some insiders think so. But let's pause there. Let's zoom out. Because the thing about this entire scandal is that it's not just about a single night. It's about history. It's about bad blood that had been simmering for years. See, Von had been dissing NBA YoungBoy. He had been cozying up to YoungBoy's rivals. And Quando? Well, Quando was firmly in YoungBoy's corner. The stage was set for an explosion. In fact, if you look at Von's last days, It almost feels like he knew something was coming. He went on Instagram Live, trolling, laughing, dismissing threats like they were just another Tuesday in O'Block. But behind the scenes, the wires were buzzing. Groups were moving. And one particular Savannah crew had every reason to want to prove a point. Let me make this crystal clear. Vaughn's death wasn't random. It wasn't just another night gone wrong. According to exclusive leaks, which basically means someone's cousin spilled tea on Facebook, Quando's crew orchestrated the perfect trap. And Lil Durk? He wasn't even in the building. But that didn't stop fans from pasting his face all over the narrative. And here's the irony. Quando Rondo played the victim. Remember that infamous Angela Yee interview? The one where he sat there, looking like he just survived the apocalypse, saying he had nothing to do with it? Yeah, the crocodile tears were Oscar-worthy. But rewind the footage. Look closer. You'll see it. The smirk, the slip-ups, the way he tried too hard to distance himself. Classic guilty energy. Meanwhile, the internet detectives were doing their job. Threads on Reddit with 10,000 comments breaking down blurry CCTV footage frame by frame. TikTokers claiming they heard Quando whisper Vaughn's name in the background. Twitter journalists drawing red circles around every shadow in the video. And guess what? All those fingers pointed not at Durk, but right back at Quando and his squad. But here's the ultimate scandal. Quando's gang wasn't just reacting to Vaughn. They had their own skeletons. Lavish spending sprees right after the incident. Designer clothes, flashy cars, and you guessed it, mysterious cash flowing in from unknown sources. Coincidence? I think not. One anonymous insider even claimed it was like they got paid for it. 1 week after Vaughn's death, they were popping bottles like nothing happened. That's not grief, that's celebration. And you know who else noticed? The feds. Oh yeah, Uncle Sam doesn't miss a beat. They started sniffing around. They saw the flights booked under fake names, the rental cars with phony plates, the sudden influx of money. And all those dots. They connected straight back to Quando's circle. So, why is this only coming out now? Why did it take years for this narrative to surface? Simple. Smoke and mirrors. While the internet was too busy clowning Durk with slide for Vaughn memes, the real culprits were sliding under the radar. Playing the victim, hiding in plain sight, letting the world burn while they counted their stacks. And that, my friends, is where this scandal takes a sharp turn. Because if the evidence piling up against Quando Rondo's gang is even halfway true, then the story of Vaughn's death isn't about betrayal from inside OTF at all. It's about a Savannah rapper who turned a beef into a bloodbath, and thought he got away with it. So here's where things get absolutely insane. If part 1 was the setup, part 2 is where we open the floodgates of pure chaos. Remember when I told you about the so-called receipts? Yeah, let's talk about those. Because apparently, anonymous sources, you know, the ones that live in the shadows of Instagram DMs and post blurry screenshots on Snapchat at 3 a.m., claim that Quando Rondo's gang didn't just stumble into Vaughn that night. No. They had intel. Insider-level intel. The kind of information that doesn't just fall into your lap. Leaked reports suggest that a burner phone tied to one of Quando's associates was pinging in the same area hours before Vaughn even arrived. Coincidence? Maybe if you believe in fairy tales. More likely, somebody tipped them off. One anonymous insider even swore they knew exactly when Vaughn was pulling up. It was like watching a movie where the ending was already written. And then comes the money trail. Always follow the money, right? Right after Vaughn's death, Quando's circle was suddenly flush with cash. Not mixtape money. Not streaming checks. We're talking suspicious big bag money. Designer trips, new cars, iced-out jewelry, all showing up in their IG stories like some twisted flexathon. And you expect us to believe they were just grieving? Please. One so-called leaked financial record again, courtesy of some cousin's friend who works at a gas station, allegedly shows a wire transfer tied to an entertainment consultant account linked directly back to the Savannah crew. In plain English, someone somewhere might have paid for this hit. And Quando? He just happened to be the guy in the spotlight. But let's not stop there. Because if you thought the receipts were juicy, wait until you hear the eyewitness contradictions. At least 3 different people gave 3 totally different accounts of what happened that night. One said Vaughn attacked first. Another swore Quando was provoking him. And a third? claimed they saw a mysterious SUV circling the block right before shots rang out. SUV, masks, tinted windows, the whole Netflix crime series starter pack. And guess what? No one ever identified who was inside that SUV. It disappeared like a ghost. Vanished into thin air. If that doesn't scream premeditated, I don't know what does. Now let's add a little spice: social media. The internet detectives were working overtime, baby. They pulled up old Quando Rondo tweets, Instagram captions, even Snapchat geotags. One TikTok video with over 3 million views broke down Quando's body language from the Angela Yee interview frame by frame, saying his nervous eye twitches proved he was lying. Another viral post highlighted how his chain collection mysteriously grew right after Von's death. Coincidence? The internet says no. Fans flooded Twitter with hashtags like #QuandoDidIt, #VonSetUp, and my personal favorite, #FollowTheBag. The memes? Ruthless. One meme showed a Monopoly board with Von as the peace landing on go directly to hospital, while Quando's gang was chilling on collect $200. Dark humor, but that's how the internet processes tragedy, by turning it into savage memes and viral hashtags. But what about the industry? Surely the rap world stayed quiet, right? Wrong. Several rappers threw subliminals in their songs and Instagram lives. One Atlanta rapper, who will remain nameless because, let's be real, he probably doesn't want smoke, allegedly said, "Y'all blaming Dirk, but you not looking at the boy from Savannah. He ain't innocent, trust me." Another anonymous producer leaked a voice note claiming Quando bragged in a private studio session about making headlines without dropping a track. If that's true, it's not just arrogance, it's a confession hiding in plain sight. And the funniest part? While all this was brewing, Quando kept posting like nothing happened. Smiling selfies, flexing outfits, pretending life was peachy. But fans weren't buying it. The comments under every post turned into crime scene investigations. Where were you that night? Who paid you? Blink twice if you're guilty. His IG became less about music and more like a live trial. Meanwhile, Lil Durk? Sitting back, letting the storm swirl. Sure, he dropped some ominous bars here and there, but compared to Quando's chaos, Durk looked like a saint. The irony is painful. The internet dragged him for years, chanting "Slide for Von" like it was a national anthem. But the new narrative? Durk wasn't sliding because he wasn't supposed to. Because he wasn't even the villain in this story. But oh no, it doesn't stop with internet sleuths and fan theories. Let's talk about the so-called government files. Recently, a set of confidential documents mysteriously leaked online, claiming federal agents were monitoring Savannah crews for months leading up to Von's death. These files supposedly mention Operation Peach Pit, I kid you not, and outline surveillance of certain gang members making unusual trips to Atlanta. The kicker? One page, allegedly stamped with an official seal, literally says, "Target identified. Quando's group mobilizing." Is it real? Probably not. Is it juicy enough to go viral on Twitter? Absolutely. And that's all that matters. And just when you thought it couldn't get wilder, let's sprinkle in some hospital drama. Remember how I mentioned earlier that some say Von didn't die instantly? Well, new whispers claim a shadowy figure entered the hospital that night, someone not on the guest list, someone who may have finished the job. Of course, there's no footage, no official statement, just a rumor repeated so many times it's become gospel in the streets. And who do people think sent that shadowy figure? You guessed it, Quando's crew. Now, whether you believe that or not, here's the undeniable truth. This scandal has spiraled far beyond a single shooting. It's not just about Von or Quando, or even Dirk anymore. It's about the entire culture of hip-hop being dragged into a conspiracy that feels straight out of a Netflix limited series. And the public? They eat it up. Every tweet, every leaked screenshot, every shaky exclusive YouTube video gets 1 million views in 24 hours. But here's the real question: what happens next? Because scandals don't just vanish. They leave scars. And as more receipts surface, as more anonymous sources crawl out of the woodwork, the pressure cooker is about to explode. Will Quando finally break under the weight of suspicion? Will Dirk get vindicated in the eyes of fans? Or will the truth remain buried under layers of money, memes, and manipulation? One thing's for sure, if you thought the leaks were messy, wait until you see the fallout. Because what comes next isn't just fan speculation. It's legal heat, public backlash, and consequences that even Quando Rondo's expensive chains can't shine away. So here we are. The receipts have been waved around, the internet detectives have had their fun, and Quando Rondo's gang is sitting under a magnifying glass hotter than the Georgia sun in July. The question now isn't if there will be fallout, it's when and how bad. Let's start with the legal side, because you know the feds never sleep. Whispered reports suggest that federal investigators have been quietly building a case against Savannah Cruz for years. Racketeering, organized crime, interstate operations, the whole RICO playbook. And now? Vaughn's death is the missing puzzle piece. According to one leaked memo, prosecutors are considering charges not just for the shooters, but for anyone linked financially to the operation. Which, if you believe the conspiracy, includes some very familiar names. Imagine this: flashy chains seized in evidence bags, music royalties frozen, tour money suddenly inaccessible. It's like watching the empire of street credibility collapse brick by brick. And the internet? They're already sharpening their pitchforks. Reddit threads are lit up with titles like Quando Next to Catch a Rico, while Twitter hashtags like #JusticeForVaughn trend every other week. But it's not just the law closing in. The industry is reacting too. Promoters are rumored to be canceling Quando's shows, fearing chaos in the crowd. One promoter even allegedly said, "We don't book ticking time bombs. Liabilities too high." Brutal, but can you blame them? Nobody wants a viral brawl on their stage. Meanwhile, the public's fascination grows. YouTubers pump out exclusive exposés daily, TikTokers act out dramatic reenactments of the shooting, and Instagram blogs milk the story like it's their only paycheck. Even mainstream outlets, the ones that used to roll their eyes at hip-hop drama, are now circling like vultures, because scandal sells. And what about Lil Durk? Ironically, he's emerging from this saga looking more vindicated than ever. Fans who once accused him of not sliding for Vaughn are now painting him as the misunderstood figure who got blamed for someone else's mess. His streams are up, his influence is stronger, and suddenly, the villain crown is looking more like a halo. But let's not romanticize too much, because in scandals this deep, there's never just one villain, and there's never just one victim. The streets are still buzzing with rumors of who paid who leaked what, and who's about to get snatched next. It's like a chessboard, except the pieces are rappers, gangs, and feds, and every move is broadcast live on social media. And then there's the human cost. Families torn apart. Kids growing up fatherless. Friends watching their homies get gunned down or locked up. Underneath the flashing lights and viral memes, there's real blood, real trauma, real pain. The internet might laugh, but the streets never forget. So where does this all lead? According to insiders, prosecutors are preparing a bombshell indictment that could drop within months. If it lands, it won't just be Quando's crew in the hot seat. It could ripple through the entire industry, forcing artists, labels, and even promoters to answer uncomfortable questions. And now, here's the part where I hand the mic over to you. Because let's be real, this story is bigger than me, bigger than YouTube, bigger than hip-hop. Think about it. If King Von's death wasn't about Lil Durk, if it wasn't about the narrative we've all been fed, then what does that say about the industry? About the streets? About the way stories get spun until we can't tell fact from fiction anymore? Was Vaughn's murder really a tragic accident in a heated moment? Or was it a premeditated setup by Quando Rondo's gang? A scheme that the world overlooked because it was easier to blame Durk? And if the hospital rumors are true, if someone really finished the job behind closed doors, then what does that say about the power these crews hold? Now here's the bigger question. What happens next? Do the feds finally bring justice? Or does this all get buried under money, lawyers, and distractions? Do fans hold these rappers accountable? Or do we keep streaming the music because we can't look away? I want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Quando's gang orchestrated it? Or is this still Durk's burden to carry? Smash that like button if you're hooked on uncovering the real truth. Share this video with someone who thinks they already know the story. And of course, subscribe so you don't miss the next piece of this puzzle. Because trust me, this story isn't over. The streets are still talking, the leaks are still dropping, and the truth? The truth is always stranger than fiction.